homies.
And welcome back
To Read the Room,
A Culture Club.
a podcast by
Alexis.
Kaylin.
and Larson.
Today, our episode is a deep dive on fan fiction.
It sure is. You guys want to know a fun fact about Kaylin?
What?
I don't think I've ever read any. And we'll get into the definitions of fan fiction here in a little bit, but I don't think I've read any fanfic in the stereotypical AO3 Wattpad territory.
You didn't have a middle school or early high school phase where you like dived really deep?
I was afraid to use a family computer for anything, and I spent a lot of time playing sports and driving to and from those activities.
You could have been reading your fan fiction
I
in the
could've.
car.
You're right. You're right. But then I would have to answer questions for my mother, my very nosy mother, about what I was reading.
Larson, did you have a fan fiction phase?
I'm trying to think. I have vague memories of, I feel like reading things that are not canon,
Yeah,
but I don't remember what they are. And
Yeah.
I don't remember
like where you got them from.
what the fandom was. Like I was definitely a kid that was online just enough to have, and especially as a kid who was like, I'm going to be a writer.
Yeah.
You know, I probably was like thinking about writing some fanfic at one point. But maybe I blacked it out because I don't have solid, clear memories.
Full blackout
Yeah.
of the super scandalous stuff that you read.
Yeah.
We're like, ask your mom. She's like, no, Larson was reading some crazy shit.
I mean, I did read a lot.
Yeah.
How much of that was online and how much of that was
Yeah.
books? I don't know. It's all lost to time.
Yeah.
Jenna, do you remember? do you remember us? Because it would have been us.
Jenna, are you listening, Jenna?
She better be. I think part of like I didn't have a big fan fiction phase or anything like that. I think I absolutely would have had I had greater access to the internet, but you know, probably the same for you guys all around. We were all raised at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I wasn't going to like do stuff on the family computer when by the time I was in high school, I did have a smartphone, and I
Yeah.
think that did widen things up, but I really only had like Instagram and Tumblr, Snapchat. I did have Pinterest, but like I did not delve into websites too much. But you know what I did notice is that my friends really did. Like the circle of friends that I was in,
Mm-hmm.
distinctly, I was in a friend group where there was a couple people who were big Louis and Harry fan fiction readers.
Yeah.
I have a distinct memory of being like, wait, you read what?
I definitely remember hearing about it, but I was just like, I don't know where to find that. I don't know if I would like, why would I read that? Why wouldn't I just read the normal text?
It's actually part of how I think some of my innocence was lost,
Yeah.
because I think like freshman year of high school, I was like, oh, well, I want to read some of what you're reading.
Yeah.
So they showed me a story and it was smut. I hadn't watched porn, let alone read gay smut.
It's good to know what was going on
Yeah.
behind the scenes.
Redacted high school.
We'll bleep it.
Yeah. Well,
We keep saying we're from Reading. There's only 3 high schools.
right. You're right.
4 if we're counting you poop.
Well, with that, maybe we should talk about what fan fiction actually is, and then we can get into where it's gone.
That would
Clearly,
probably be helpful for the listeners.
it's been around for a minute if we were all
Yes.
aware of it in high school.
And upon research, it's been around longer, but
Mhm.
not in the traditional, or not in the sense that we think of.
It keeps evolving.
Yeah.
Well, fanfic or fanfiction refers to unauthorized stories written by, you guessed it, fans rather than professional authors, using characters, settings, and lore from existing works like books or movies or TV shows. So like a key part of the genre of fan fiction is that you're borrowing these story elements and changing them or expanding on them, but that you're working with an already kind of set to varying degrees world.
There's bumpers up.
Yeah.
And other kind of hallmarks of the fan fiction genre include that oftentimes these stories are posted online, that there is a kind of self-publishing aspect or a self-sharing aspect where stories, or even just parts of stories, like sometimes fan fiction is shared in, might be called a chapter, might be called a part, just at a time. And then there are a digital audience, digital readers who read those piece by piece. And some fan fictions get abandoned before all the pieces are out and completed. Sometimes a piece gets made that's like a 122 part monster behemoth.
Yes.
Because the fans want more. And that's a huge part of it also, is that it's really a community driven literary genre. It's all exists off the back of fan labor. And within that fan labor and those fan told stories, I think a big thing that we'll explore in this episode is the what if of the genre. That's part of what the fan fictions drive towards, is exploring what if scenarios, extending narratives, creating new relationships. What if Harry was gay? What if Luke Skywalker joined the dark side?
Or was on Earth as like a high school kid.
You're right. Yeah.
That's another genre I was unaware of.
You can take the what if as big as you want.
Absolutely. Or as small.
I mean, I think that is like obviously the fun part of fanfic, because your source material is limited in some ways, and it's really fun to see the creativity that these outside online writers take these things where you're like, oh, I didn't even think of that, and you invented an entire new world.
A spin-off series, right?
Yeah.
Naomi Novik, who is a popular fantasy writer, she has a couple of different like stories that she's riffing on, like the Napoleonic Wars and adding dragons to that, or Spinning Silver, which riffs off of Rumpelstiltskin. And she is a co-founder of AO3, and she says that I believe that all art, if it is any good, is in dialogue with other art. Fanfic, or fan fiction, feels to me like a more intimate conversation. It's a conversation where you need the reader to really have a lot of detail at their fingertips.
No, I think that quote really sums up something so critical about understanding the fan fiction genre. That's the intimacy aspect.
Yeah.
It's very communal. It's sharing based. It's oftentimes the readers writing for the readers. Like there's less of a putting on airs almost, or a separation between who the writer and the reader is, right?
Yeah.
So I just think that use of the word intimacy is so interesting there. And yeah, this idea that we're in conversation. I was reading a study where they talked about familiarity and the fact that fan works actually can offer something that other traditional fiction genres cannot, which is familial characters, settings, themes, things that the audience already knows, that you read and you get this sense of homecoming. Each work is able to provide instant immersion as long as you already know the canon material. And that way, when you're reading fan fiction, if it's about a world that you already know, you're spared the kind of cognitive effort of world building. And you're not starting from a blank slate. Like, I love fantasy fiction. I love high fantasy. But I will say sometimes it's hard when you have to spend 50 pages on exposition and learning the world and learning
or if you're Brandon Sanderson, 700 pages.
Exactly.
Of the first two books of a series.
First two books of a series. Just learning all the ins and outs of this world so that you can get into the story. Instead, if it's fan fiction, one thing it can do is offer the familiarity so that you can just kind of hop right in and hit the ground running.
Well, there's a necessity. There's a necessity of that intimacy too. Like, you're not going to get crossover love stories between two books you haven't read. You're not going to know the background. You're not going to know who those people are as you remove two high fae from their own places and place them in a workplace comedy.
Yeah. Literally, as we've been defining the fan fiction genre just now, I realized that I just gave my students an assignment essentially to create fan fiction. And I would have never called it that, but that's 1000% what I was doing by this definition. My juniors read The Great Gatsby and they had a project. And one of the project options at the end of The Great Gatsby was to, as a group, videotape a skit. And in the skit, they would be imagining that the characters of The Great Gatsby were on a reality TV show. So some of them were doing like
that is fanfic, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And some of them were doing like The Great Gatsby if it was Love Island. And some of them were doing like The Great Gatsby if it was a Maury style talk show. I mean, they were coming up with these cool ideas.
Real Housewives of New York.
Yeah.
Yes. But we talked about, me and my students, like, okay, but you have to like play by the rules still. You can't all of a sudden make Tom Buchanan, the nicest guy in the world. And now we're realizing I've just primed them to be fan fiction creators.
If they're any good, you should post them to AO3.
Some of them might already be. I don't know.
Speaking of AO3, there's a couple
Yeah.
of better known. I'm sure there are many a place that you can find
So many
fanfic.
corners
Probably
of the
just
internet.
Reddit. Probably just, does Tumblr still exist? I'm sure it's on there. Like, I'm sure you can find it anywhere there's internet access. But Wattpad is a really popular platform. And as of 2022, there's 94 million users. That is creators and readers. I'm sure there's a lot of overlap between the two. And on average, 23 billion minutes a month, which works out to 60 minutes per user per day, are spent on Wattpad. A lot of time, especially since I'm sure a lot of those users are inactive.
Yeah. Not all 94 million are on there for an hour.
No.
Some people are doing a lot of heavy lifting to get that average, I'm
Yes,
sure.
yes.
Yeah, and the other big one that we've been saying tons and tons is AO3. I had a dumb moment. As I was reading for this episode, I was reading a article that was about Archive of Our Own. It kept saying Archive of Our Own, Archive of Our Own. I did not realize.
I did
I
not
had no
either.
idea.
Yes. AO3 is the shortened version for archiveofourown.org, which is the actual web address.
Yeah.
The name is actually a nod to Virginia Woolf's A Room of One's Own.
Interesting.
That's the part I had no idea about. Was that the part you guys had no idea about?
No, I had never heard of
Oh.
Archive of Our Own.
Oh, really? You've only heard AO3?
Yeah.
Okay, I think like in the last 6 months, those were put together for me, because I think somebody on a podcast did go back and forth between the two. But I had heard the term AO3 and was like, I don't know what the fuck that is. I have
Yeah.
no idea what that is. The
And-
Archive of Our Own sounds a little bit more straightforward of what
God,
that is.
I'm still dumb because even though I knew that AO3 and Archive of Our Own were the same thing now, it just clicked in my brain that it's A and then
Oh,
3
oh.
O's.
That feels like a Galen there.
Listening to me? I'm just kidding.
Should not be letting you teach the youth.
Oh my God. No, I'm really good at what I do. But yes, Archive of Our Own, or more better known as AO3, was created in 2008. And the reason why is because a lot of writers, a lot of readers wanted an archive of their own. There was a mass deletion. People were seeing a mass deletion of fan accounts on blogging platforms like LiveJournal. And as a result, there was a loss of like hundreds of previously published
Stories lost to time.
yeah.
A burning of the Library of Alexandria.
Literally. This is my Library of Alexandria. So this previously published fanfic just into the air. And the reason why that of those mass deletions was that, you know, there is some legally shaky ground sometimes for fan fiction works. Like you are using other people's creative
IP.
property,
Yeah.
IP. AO3 was really seeking to create an archive, to provide a stable place to house fans' works. And something I thought was really crazy, it relies on around 700 volunteers to keep the site going and organized.
Wow.
Yeah. And right now, it represents or houses more than 53,000 fandoms, has over 5 million users, and has over 10 million works on it.
That's crazy.
Yeah. With the works being translated into 70 languages, and a lot of those translations, that's a fan fiction being written in one language and then translated to another language. And there are 70 different languages total, or probably over 70 now, that they've been translated into. All those translations, fan labor, done by other users, done by other readers.
Just a question, because
Yeah.
5 million is actually the lowest one we have on this list.
Hang on, let me look at when the source date was. This is written in 2023.
Yeah, it feels low compared to Wattpad.
Wattpad has 94 million
Yeah.
users, so it doesn't mean
I had the same thought, like as I
when
was
it
saying.
says users. Also, the fic book, fanfic, whatever,
Yeah.
that has more users.
Yeah.
Are they using words interchangeably when they don't mean that?
Do you have to log into each of these to read even? So would that not be a user if you're not logged in?
Well, yeah, I don't know.
Oh.
Let's open up AO3, see if you can log in.
Oh, it's registered. Okay, maybe we should specify. I think what it's saying is registered users,
Not like
not just casual
IP addresses
readers.
that are on their
Yeah,
As of today, at this moment, which is what date?
May 19th,
May
Tuesday,
19th.
May 19th, 2026.
At 5:24 p.m. Archive of Our Own, or AO3, on their site says they have 10,840,000 users.
That's a lot of users. Still supposedly not as many as Wattpad.
Yeah, and I wonder, like the point you said, whether or not that's like whether you have to have an account.
Yeah.
Wattpad
Yeah.
might force you to have an account to read
Yeah.
versus AO3 you can just
It's like based off
read.
and like maybe Wattpad statistic is or vice versa. Maybe they're just pulling a different number. It's just the amount of IP addresses that visit that site or
Mhm.
something. So even like your
versus
phone,
actual accounts. That,
yeah, like your phone versus your iPad versus your computer. I'm not a computer person. My understanding is that's 3 different IP addresses. So like potentially you could be 3 of those 94 million users.
Mm-hmm. Either way you look at it,
A lot of people.
a lot of people.
a lot of people, millions of people using these sites, and there was a couple other ones that we found that are like smaller even in terms of like notoriety, but
Mhm.
not necessarily in terms of users. Ficbook.net and fanfics.me as of 2020 together, those two total 7.5 million in monthly audience. And 63% of the readers, they looked at their readers data and found that they were women between
Mhm.
18 and 34 years of age. So
Which really checks out when you think about who becomes
fan fiction writers.
Yeah.
who leads the charge?
Yeah.
Yeah. I also don't know if I've ever heard the word fanfic come out of a man's mouth.
So I don't think I ever have.
I do want to break down though, and I don't know if we can ever find this in their data or if this is something that these websites provide,
Mhm.
but like Brandon Sanderson is a male dominated readership, I feel like.
Mhm.
Is that number of male female percentage change based on the fandom, or is it still mostly women writing and mostly women reading just
Mm.
because of the nature
Yeah.
of the platform?
Yeah.
And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Maybe we'll answer our own question. Who knows? Comment if you know the answer.
And in terms of the platforms and the popularity, something I just think was kind of interesting after going through a couple of the big guys, the behemoths in the space, is that there is a vital importance of these digital platforms in terms of just housing, providing a home for
Mhm.
these collections of stories. And probably what's really interesting, and correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but probably what's really interesting is that I bet you there are users across this like spectrum where on like one end you have people who are like a Wattpad people.
Yeah.
They read Wattpad stories.
Mhm.
They make Wattpad stories.
Mhm.
Maybe even then on the other end, there's people who are like AO3 only all the
Yeah.
way.
They're like loyalists. to
There's
the-
loyalists, just
yeah.
people who might have their niche platforms. They're more like they searched for that platform. They went and found it in the crevices of fan fiction. And then I bet you there's people who like love to be on all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, or they have one like an original source that they're following across
Yeah.
all platforms. Yeah.
But how did we get here? How did we get to millions and millions and millions of people?
Well, Alexis, one of the sources that I had found posits perhaps Virgil, when he picked up where Homer left off with the story of Aeneas, or Shakespeare's retelling of Arthur Brooks' 1562, The Tragical History of Romeus and Juliet, illustrates that fan fiction transcends time. It is older than we think it is.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying that the origin of fan fiction is as old as literature itself?
I am saying that.
Damn.
And maybe even older. I feel like, you're telling stories around the fire and, you're riffing off the last guy's story a little bit, or you're at another fire, you're riffing off someone's story, You have those bumper rails and you're like, okay, I remember that Paul was doing this. So John is doing okay, but they're in a fishing trip now. I feel really biblical, I feel like there.
Krug heard one story in one village.
Yes.
Went to another village and was like, I did not like ending. I will do same story, different ending.
Yes. So all of oral history is also just fan fiction.
You know what? It doesn't really surprise me. I
No.
mean, you mentioned Virgil picking up where Homer left off. How many times do we see a riff on the Odyssey
Mhm.
Yeah.
played out? I mean, the hero's journey.
Yes. Yeah, and now that I'm thinking about this, I'm like, are movie retellings, is that also fan fiction? Specifically Homer's Odyssey and
Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou?
Oh Brother Where Art Thou, yes.
Well, I was gonna say I don't know if it's considered fan fiction if it's just retelling the same thing,
But
'cause
they're
it-
fans.
but it's we're losing the what ifs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. It's the changing of
Mhm.
something or the expanding of something
Yeah.
Mhm.
that then makes it fan fiction. So if it's faithful,
Yeah.
not
So
fan
if you
fiction.
more just drop Odysseus into
So, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? That would be fan fiction because it's like, what if it's set in this time?
Right.
heard.
Yeah.
Or
But-
like Song of Achilles would be.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of I feel like recent novels that are, and maybe older that I'm thinking too,
Mhm.
but that are Greek or Roman mythology retellings that I believe would also fall under fanfic.
Yeah. But the term, obviously, even if the genre or the origins of the genre are
Mhm.
very old, the term fan fiction itself is pretty modern. It came into use in the 1940s, and the concept grew out of responses, like reader responses, reader
Mhm.
write-ins to science fiction pulp magazines, especially with women, because women were really shut out of more professional writing
Mhm.
roles by their male counterparts. And so they would turn to these kind of pulp magazine counterparts, and you could write in your own interpretation or iteration of a previous story. And sometimes it would even get picked up in a pulp magazine issue. It was really easy to get like published in those quick paced and like a little bit more sometimes seen as like lowbrow works.
Mhm.
And
They're a
so
little bit more willy-nilly, less
Yeah.
professional.
so there was also less stigma
Mhm.
about who was writing the stories, which is really
Mhm.
interesting.
Yeah. One of the first like group or larger expanded universes, I guess, of fan fiction is in the 1960s. Star Trek fans started creating zines about Spock and Captain Kirk's adventures and maybe sexual dalliances. I added that part. But that was like one of the first like big, well-known, established group of fan fiction or selection of fan fiction writings, I guess, to pull from.
Very in line with the popularity of science fiction.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
But I do think like there's just examples all over the literary world. Like
Mhm.
it's in some ways similar to our age gap
Yeah.
episode.
It's everywhere. The more you see
Yeah,
it.
once you start like thinking about it, you're like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, that would kind of be fanfic.
Mhm.
Once you start looking, you realize that actually everything is an originality question. Is there
Mhm.
any originality left in the world, and does there even need to be?
Yeah.
Well, and like even that, like you could still be having a completely original story,
Mhm.
but you're
Reusing.
riffing off something. Like
Yeah.
one that popped in my head was My Lady Jane. It's not
Mm.
necessarily riffing off of a piece of literature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's taking real history and being like, what if this didn't happen?
Yeah.
Right.
Or like Abraham Lincoln Vampire Slayer.
And also, let's add, yeah, I was gonna say,
Pride and
in
Prejudice
My
and
La-
Zombies.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes,
My Lady
yes.
Jane, you're adding a magical element, zombies,
Mhm.
vampires. Yeah,
Mhm.
you're just twisting it a little bit, and I think that is
Yeah.
still originality.
No, you're so right. You're so right. Like I don't mean to judge too fast. Maybe it's not a question of originality. Maybe there's a trend and there's a pattern, but the more I think about it, the more I'm like, damn, some of these works would not exist without immense creativity.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Because
definitely.
actually like there's a lot of innovation and
Mhm.
inventiveness going on. I even was thinking about like the CW show Rain about
Yeah.
Mary Queen of Scots.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They were doing some historical fan fiction.
Yeah. I mean, okay, is like The Crown. I know we talked about this on a different episode, but like the closed door conversations that they have. I guess it's not like a written, that it's like a historical source. But I'm like how far does it go? Like if you're just
Mhm.
interpreting small things that are not explicit, like writing an extra chapter between chapters when a scene is cut off or something. Like I think that is fan fiction.
That is
It's
asking like, what if this happened?
yeah.
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 There's probably some middle ground too, right?
Mhm.
Like where something is a genre blend of
Mhm.
partially fan
Mhm.
fiction, partially historical fiction,
Yeah.
or something like
What's
that.
like a small creative liberty and what's like legit fanfic?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know what? That's a question that I think people probably ask more than we think, because I know I've heard the jokes before when like a director's been doing some passion project of like, this is just their fanfic.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Like sometimes I think it depends on the lens which we, the audience, like give to something.
Mhm.
If we consider it, something maybe silly, then maybe there's more of a gut reaction to apply the term fan fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you add zombie, vampire, or whatever,
Yeah.
versus just kind of modifying or retelling a story.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And because like fan fiction, I think has evolved so naturally, and also erupted so recently
Mhm.
between like 1940s when pulp magazines are super popular to 1960s when things are picking up steam, especially in specific fiction genres like fantasy or sci-fi.
Mhm.
Then we get the internet, and then that's where things
Oh.
really like change and blow up in a different way. Like the evolution's been constant, I think is what I'm saying.
Mhm.
Mhm.
But there's a couple peaks. And I think that one of the peaks that probably is worth noting is that with accessibility of the internet, we've been able to share stories
Mhm.
with
Mhm.
greater ease.
Yeah.
Uh,
And more people share stories to more people and more people having the ability to write these stories.
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. It is the modern printing press.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's the modern printing press. And so getting that online audience has only made things grow even more and reach
Mhm.
the popularity that we previously mentioned. AO3 started in 2008, which kind of aligns with when there was wider internet access
Mhm.
amongst people. It's also, isn't that when like kind of smartphones came out?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like the BlackBerry, I think was already popping around, but
Mhm.
definitely more and better internet access, web browser access on phones for sure.
Yeah, I'm not saying that that was a direct contributing factor. More so, I just, in my mind, wanted to test my own knowledge and was like, wait, I think the iPhone came out around then. It came out in 2007.
Yeah.
So, like, of the era, But, we see that kind of Y2K internet boom that allows the game to be changed. Instead of having to write in to a magazine or to a journal, now you can comment online,
Mm-hmm.
and things have skyrocketed so quickly that in 2019, AO3 won a Hugo Award, which is a huge
Yeah.
major literary award. The category was for best related work. And what I find so crazy is it wasn't like a fan fiction story of great popularity won a Hugo Award. It was that the site itself, the house, the home of the works was granted this renowned science fiction and fantasy award. According to an article that I read, when attendees were asked to stand during the awards ceremony for if they had participated in the production of any fan fiction,
Mm-hmm.
all manner of professionals at the 2019 Hugo Awards stood. Like people from every section of the literary profession stood up. It just kind of displays how far I think fan fiction has come from the days when writers were encouraged to delete,
Yeah.
evidence of their fan fiction works if they wanted to appear professional. Because that used to
Mhm.
be a thing too. It used to be like, if
Mhm.
you're writing fan fiction on the side and now you're trying to become a published author, you better not let people find your little side projects.
Yeah. Now it's
Yeah.
basically a gateway. Gateway.
Yeah. There's so many authors that get their start in fan fiction and then their
Mhm.
first published work is based off of their fan fiction.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it has democratized probably the world of publishing so much because literary publishing for the past half a century has had a lot of elitism to it. And like Loki, even before that, I just am
Mhm.
not as familiar with literary publishing past the 20th century. But at least in the 20th century, some real elitism. Like you need to be an academic or have quite the credentials or be a real professional, or, there are the kinds of stories that end up in pulp magazines, and there are the kinds of stories that end up in the New York Times list.
Yeah.
And or are regarded by literary critics as greats and as classics, and they don't mix and they don't intermingle, and they're different intrinsically because of who writes them and how they're written and what they're written about. And fan fiction has broken down some barriers. I think, as Larson was saying, like one of the huge ways we've seen that evolution is that it's gone from being a bit taboo to write fan fiction. Maybe some of that still exists, but now like there are these pipelines for writers to become quote unquote real writers. I kind of despise like that's how some people view it, but to become published authors from their fan fiction work, and to take their fan fiction work and go and publish it. Who are some like examples?
So Allie Hazelwood, specifically The Love Hypothesis, is a Kylo Ren and Rey fanfic, or was originally the
She got her start writing a lot of
that
Star
makes
Wars.
more sense.
No, but that is. It's both.
Wait, The Love Hypothesis is Kylo Ren and Rey fanfic?
Yes.
I still have I have The Love Hypothesis. I just haven't read it. And I don't know if that makes me want to read it more or less.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she wrote a lot of Star Wars fan fiction, specifically Kylo Ren and Rey.
Yeah. Fucking.
Yeah. And that has entered her work, and like The Love Hypothesis itself that's where it started. That's not what it is now.
Yeah.
But that is where it started.
Interesting. One that I was aware of, E.L. James, author of 50 Shades of Grey, doing some Twilight fanfic. But some other notable names, Olivia Blank and Meg Cabot. And you can even say the Bronte sisters dabbled in a little fanfic in their own way.
A recent one that's been very popular because it was traditionally published is Alchemized by Senlin Yu. However, that was one of the most popular pieces of fanfic under the name Manacled. And it's a fanfic of Draco and Hermione kind of love story situation, but it also has a lot of like Handmaid's Tale influence in it. And it's one of the most popular pieces of fanfic ever. It has recently been traditionally published. Obviously, had to take out all of the references to Harry Potter and Handmaid's Tale for that to happen. I haven't read either version, but it's one that people love.
Yeah. Sounds crazy though, premise wise, to be like
Harry Potter,
Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah.
Draco and Hermione. Like
yeah.
It feels like you're pulling the craziest things from the craziest things to combine together.
It's giving like drawing from the hat.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
That's wild. And as you guys were giving those examples, and I was thinking about like, Larson saying that Manacled was one of, or probably is still one of the most read fan fictions.
Since it's been traditionally published, Manacled has been taken off of any fanfic sites. So unless somebody has it saved somewhere,
PDF copy somewhere,
you have to remove the evidence.
Yeah, but Alchemized is available in stores.
Right.
See if you can find the details that she switched.
Yeah.
But like just the idea that pre-publishing, it was so huge. And I know like with E.L. James Twilight fanfiction, that was also, it got published because it was so huge.
Yeah.
It's got me thinking, in terms of the evolution of publishing going along with the evolution of fan fiction and the way that the publishing game and the attitudes in publishing houses has kind of shifted and changed. Fan fiction is actually like a really smart thing for publishers to look at, because it's like a proving ground.
Yeah.
If 10 million people have read the story online, one, it tells you it's probably a pretty engaging story. It's probably pretty good. And also that at least some portion of those millions will go out and will buy.
Yeah. The only thing with that is like with the problem with Manacled to Alchemized is you have to get rid of everything that makes it fan
fiction.
Yeah. So if you're an OG Manacled,
you'll know.
Yeah, and would you be more or less like, because I see what Alexis is saying and what, like what both you guys are saying, and especially since like authors, you have to have a following of some kind in order to get published these days, like a TikTok following, a podcast, whatever, or be already published. But yeah, if it's changed greatly, is the same people who are reading the fanfic going to read that book, or is it a completely different crowd who's reading that book?
I think it's both and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One that I just thought of when because I was thinking, I'm like, really the only way to get fanfic published is if the original author then takes that story and like rewrites it themselves, which then, more legal issues on on
Shaky ground,
who
yeah.
owns it. But one that I just thought of was the author Veronica Roth. I don't know if you guys have seen this lately, but she has been talking about writing.
That's who wrote the Divergent series.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
She's been talking about writing a new Divergent book of Triss if she didn't choose whatever the
faction or whatever
yeah,
she's
Dauntless, and she chose Abnegation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If she chose
Erudite.
a different faction.
I did see that recently.
And I think she was saying that, like, she would, Triss and Four, was that his name? Something
Yeah.
like that. They would still end up together, but like the story would be different because she chose a different faction. That's her
She's
basically.
gonna fanfic herself.
Yeah.
Interesting. And as you were saying that, I was like, how do authors feel about the fan fiction that's written? Because I'm sure J.K. Rowling hates anything overly gay, trans, anything like that about her characters.
I think it's probably so dependent on the author.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure
I could see a lot having fun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm sure so many authors love it and get
Yeah.
ideas from it.
Yes.
And I'm sure there are so many authors who hate it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, not to bring Taylor Swift into this, but she would hate it.
Yes.
She already smashes any person who maybe slightly profits off of her,
a second of a song that might sound the same,
or even just like her potential tangentially merch stuff.
Yes.
I think that she would probably, if she were an author, she would hate fanfic being written.
There was fanfic, and she did hate it. The Gaylor fanfic.
Well, is that fanfic? Or is that
just
reality?
Yeah.
There were pictures. There were pictures of Taylor Swift and Carly Close kissing. I'll die on this hill.
I'm a Gaylor truther.
And you know what? Famously, she did actually say in interviews that she hated that. So
Yeah.
you're so right, Larson.
Yeah.
It's got to depend on the person. How much of a loller are you? How willing are you to have a little lull at your own IP's expense?
Yeah. Well, I was like, when we were talking about Brandon Sanderson earlier, I was thinking like he probably loves fanfic, honestly.
Yeah.
Like,
he probably is just like sitting there writing ideas down, being like, oh, that would be a great way to connect those worlds even more.
Yeah. I'm sure there are some authors who eat it up.
Yes.
And I feel like those authors are more likely the ones who also got their start in fanfic.
Yeah. Or just have an appreciation for like being in that part of their lives, right? Like most of them were struggling authors at some point and were writing just things to write, and whether it was on the internet on AO3 or not, like that's what they were doing, is they were just like kikiing with their ideas.
Well, like the Naomi Novik quote about art.
Yes. Art
talking
is,
to art
yes.
and that communication.
Yeah.
Like if you're a lover of that, you're gonna love that. Somebody's,
but if you think that all of your ideas, just because you made them once, is it's an original idea, nobody else can touch it, then you're gonna hate it. Sorry, Taylor.
Yeah, hating fan fiction, I will admit, or hating fan fiction of your own works is a little holier than thou.
Yeah.
Like, and also that Naomi Novik quote, like it was about intimacy. So I think a huge part of how authors respond to fan fiction probably has to deal with how much they welcome intimacy and connection with their audience,
like how much therapy they've done.
If they absolutely, if they hate fan fiction off their work, then they probably don't care as much about actually genuinely connecting with their audience. They don't want people in conversation with their works. Which means that sometimes when an author is like J.K. Rowling, which first of all, J.K. Rowling is a hilarious example because we know she didn't write all of Harry Potter, right? We all know that, right? Like
I've heard lore.
Sorry if this is a hot take. I 1000% believe that J.K. Rowling had at least one, if not multiple, ghostwriters help her. I don't know. I don't want to get too tangential, but my evidence is that the writing style in the first couple books versus the latter books is totally different. And I know many people will come back and argue and say, that's because the books matured with the people as they were reading them, and she got better with time, and so that's why they're higher level. Shut up.
Shut up, you're wrong. wrong.
Just kidding. If you're listening to this, I actually don't feel that way about you. I love you. No, but J.K. Rowling, I think, is a really good example, because I think that when it comes to her not wanting that connection with her fans, it's part of what empowers then fans who disagree with her for
Yes.
political and moral reasons to take the stories back.
Yeah, it's almost the Barbara Streisand effect of like, don't look over here, don't see it, I don't want this to happen, and then it's going to happen more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that matters, especially when it comes to, in the case of J.K. Rowling, but in many other instances of fan fiction as well, queer audiences, queer writers, and queer characters, because we know that J.K. Rowling is a person filled with hate.
Yes.
When queer writers then interpret something like J.K. Rowling's work and input queer characters, make Harry gay, or make Hermione trans, or any other iteration of that, they are kind of reclaiming a piece of the work, but also like there's a real fight for representation within fan fiction as a whole.
Yeah. Well, and I think like even beyond J.K. Rowling, a lot of these fanfics too are taking like maybe they're taking a piece of literature from history that couldn't have that kind of representation, or writing some type of fanfic in that time in history to give representation back too. Like, I have no idea if this exists, but like, for example, the picture of Dorian Gray was highly censored. And a lot of it was cut. And I could see somebody writing fanfic about that and putting that back.
Yeah. Or like a very old piece that has definitely been retranslated, mistranslated on purpose by powers that be, like over time. I mean, even the Bible, like those, you can also take back what potentially could have been written.
Yeah, well,
in the accent.
we already mentioned the Song of Achilles.
Yes,
like that's such a popular book.
Yeah.
And that's putting queer representation into this, myth that everybody loves.
Yeah. 1000%. I think that when people don't see themselves in the stories that they love, it makes absolute sense that there would be an impulse to want to create that representation. Actually, I read an article about this that used a famed educational theory. There's this guy, Rudin Sims Bishop, who came up with a theory for education, for teaching literature to children, that all children need mirrors and windows and sliding doors in books. Windows are stories which allow us to look at experiences that are not our own. And mirrors are ones which allow us to look at experiences that are like ours. So there's direct empathy. And sliding door is the in-between. It's a book or a piece of literature that seeks to create empathy so that we can try to understand someone else's experience versus just telling us about it. When you are in a marginalized identity, you get mostly windows. Just in the popular canon of classic literature. And so fan fiction, in a way, allows for more mirrors and sliding doors to be created. It actually is a way of letting the reader knock down the wall and build the door, which is kind of a really cool thing, especially to think about from the lens of like kids and how much of the audience of fan fiction is young or is marginalized. Fandom often attracts marginalized populations specifically for this very reason, because there can be more democratization of who's in the stories. And I read an article that even categorized fan fiction for these reasons as being dissenting and resistant and subversive. Because it allows for more diverse communities to be seen than in commercially published texts. And then that undermines the trend in commercially published text. Commercially published.
Commercially published text.
The trend in commercially published texts to be under.
That was so hard. It doesn't feel like it should be. But the first time I went to say it, I also was like, well, and I think probably, as we were saying earlier, how like the popularity of these fanfic stories informs like what is going to get published, right? And like also if you're seeing greater trends throughout fanfic, you're probably also thinking, okay, there's a lot of like of this specific equation that people are liking. So if we are looking at books and there's a book that follows this specific equation, even if it's not that fanfic or it's not that specific text, you're like, okay, this formula is working for readers, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like we mentioned earlier that like with the women writing into these sci-fi magazines, women are still the majority of fanfic readers, and I'm assuming writers. We don't have that data, but I'm assuming writers
I mean,
as well.
It's got to be.
Every writer that we listed for like the fan fictions that have become gateways for published works, they were all women.
So men just write bad fanfic?
If men are writing fanfic, it's
but it's particularly young women.
Yeah. Well, and, like anecdotic evidence, like Alexis was saying, people in our high school were definitely reading fan fiction. I'm pretty sure I knew people who were writing fan fiction. My college roommate might have been writing fan fiction at one time. Like, I exclusively know only women who have talked about fan fiction, read fan fiction, and written fan fiction.
Yeah. And I think this is just another example of how young girls and women set what's popular, and then because it's popular, that becomes dumb or like doesn't have any merit to it.
Yeah.
And that's just not the case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Novik, who we quoted earlier, she states in the same article, it's an attack on women's writing, specifically an attack on young women's writing and the kind of stories that young women like to tell. I think that the popularity of fan fiction amongst women is not unconnected to the lack of young women protagonists who are not romantic interests. So I think there's, like you're saying, there's so many parts of these stories that we're not seeing ourselves, and you get to write that story, right? It's
it's like women not necessarily having access to publishing the same way. This is a place to start, especially because like we've said, these women are young, and it's creating stories like Alexis was saying that are more than just windows.
Yeah. Well, it also kind of reminds me just the gendered aspect, like men who cook are chefs, women who cook in the home. It's not the professional portion of it. Like, so these young women who are writing these stories, they're not professional. They're
not actually considered authors.
Yes. They're just writing on their laptops on a website.
Silly little hobby.
Yes. Yeah.
Because you love your romance stories. Yeah. I am so tired. Because it always comes back to patriarchy.
It sure does.
Feminine rage tattooed on my forehead. It feels like it's the thesis of my whole life. Everything that I care about and notice. But yeah, as you guys were talking, I was just thinking, of course, the genre, one of the genres that's female-led, where the innovation and the creativity is female-led, where there's greater representation, greater acceptance, greater community in the creation of literature and art. Of course, it gets reduced to being frivolous, smutty, not intellectual. Not advanced writing, not worthy of publishing. And obviously we know that there's some counter examples, and we know that there's been changing attitudes, but for a long time, that's been the wider societal view. And I just think, once again, I must bold, underline, and italicize, it hurts men too. Like, how much of the supremacy of women in the fan fiction space is because men are not allowed to be in touch with their emotions. They're not allowed to want a romance story.
Yeah, romance and smuts for girls. Boys are only allowed to watch porn. They're not allowed to read it.
No. Yeah, like, boys can't want to know what would happen if two characters got together who weren't previously together.
Because thinking outside the box, that's also what women would do. So
But also, I do think even though romance is a really, really huge part of fan fiction, it's not the only part, and it's reductive to like say that it is. So it's just hurting everyone. And instead of highlighting all of the wonderful ways in which fan fiction provides a space for literature to grow, wider society, because fan fiction has been defined by women has been instead critical.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of building on that, I think we touched on this a little bit, but like it's a tool for burgeoning authors. Like it is a safe space for them to get feedback. It's a safe space for them to write. Like you may not be the most popular story, but like most likely you're going to get some sort of community interaction that is going to help you further your writing ability, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And because it is a warm and kind of welcoming space, it's a diverse space, and because it's a diverse space, it's a warm and welcoming space. Women are much more uplifting and forgiving audiences in general usually than
Yeah.
men. And also adult women statistically just read more and also allow, like, I think that women, this is less of like a statistical analysis and more of an opinion, but I think that women allow themselves to read quote unquote puffy things or entertaining things with a little bit less judgment and shame,
Mm-hmm.
or at
Or
least
we're already conditioned to think,
yeah,
well, I'm already shamed for this, so might as well just
Might as well just read it.
yeah,
yeah.
let me indulge. Like if you're
Yeah.
already going to think this of me, then
Mhm.
what's the harm?
Yeah. The amount of
Um,
men on dating apps that specifically put nonfiction reader. What do you want an award for that? It's actually I think worse. I don't
the deepest sigh in the world.
It's
Um,
just Atomic Habits.
but yeah, because of all of these aspects of the community that we've mentioned, it is, I think, just as Kaylin said, a kind of a safe space, which that's a great, again, proving ground for your work. It's a great place for young writers to go to get feedback, for developing authors to get feedback, and it feels like you're doing it with your people, probably.
Yeah. And it's a little culty, I feel like. You know? Like a lot of things. It's a little culty.
It is a little culty because they have, if there's anything that I've learned from Sounds Like a Cult, it's that cults
Yes.
have their own language.
Yes, and this is just a snippet. I'm sure I could have found some longer listicle with more internal language that is used on these sites, but PWP, porn without plot, of course. Ship, which I actually learned this term from Alexis, like junior year of high school, is to pair a group of or two people, a group of people, I guess, in a relationship that you would like them to be in.
I was shipping people hard. I may not have been reading tons and tons of fanfic, but like I was so catty corner to this world. Yeah, I was shipping specifically PETA and
I was gonna
Katniss
say, yeah.
so hard.
OTP, one true pairing, RPF, real person fic. That's just like I said, a little sampling, but I did not know porn without plot before this for sure.
Yeah, I think that was really funny. PWP. It kind of when I read it, my brain goes Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
Born Without Plot, which is again a way of reducing perhaps, but sometimes you got to call it out for what it is. There is smut in fan fiction. Like
Yeah.
I feel like we do kind of have to low key acknowledge that a good amount of fan fiction has adult or explicit content in it.
I'm gonna be honest, before I did research for this, I thought every single piece of fan fiction was just a smutty story between characters.
I can see why you would think that. And it's not totally true. I do have some interesting statistics actually, just to kind of give a little picture. So I read an article where they looked at some of the biggest kind of fandoms on AO3 and looked at the content ratings specifically. So this goes right into that conversation about explicit content. So let's take Star Wars, for example.
Sorry, real quick. I think you might not know the answer to this. Are these content ratings what they are rated within the website, or is it like fed through some sort of program that's picking up on like
It's what writers have rated them
okay.
on AO3.
Okay,
So
got it.
on AO3, you go read a story, you can filter by rating. Like you can search explicitly for things rated explicit,
Got it.
right? And they actually have a good variance in ratings here. So Star Wars, let's just take for example, because that's a big one that we've mentioned. About 6% of the content is not rated. About 30% of Star Wars is for general audiences, meaning no smut. No smut. That's PG.
Yeah.
About 30% is for teen and up audiences, kind of like our PG-13. About 14% is rated mature, and 20% is explicit.
And I feel like even mature can have smutty concepts without being explicit, right? Like you can
Mhm.
still have very sexy things happening that are not just
No, like explicit is like
Yeah.
P&V.
yeah.
Like,
Hardcore, explicitly
right.
P&V. Yeah.
No, but like in teen and up or mature, you could still definitely have like some intimacy happening, you know?
Mhm.
I know in PG-13, sex is often implied, right? So if you kind of apply the same lens. But in terms of like actual pornographic content, that is looking at a large array of different fandoms from Harry Potter to Marvel to Sherlock, the TV show specifically, on AO3. None of them have more than 23% of their overall stories
Mhm.
as explicit, right? So thinking that fan fiction by definition is porn or smut or explicit, it's apparently quite short-sighted.
Yeah.
It's one part of it. And to me, like, it kind of makes sense that it wouldn't be necessarily a small part.
Mhm.
Like, a third of stories isn't actually small potatoes. But if you think about who we've already established the audiences, women, young women, a lot of teens, queer youth, it makes sense that people would want to explore sexuality and sex and would want to have a safe space. We've already talked about the
Mhm.
safe space aspect. Have a safe space and community to explore writing about mature themes, because going on a journey within themselves through those stories, whether writing them or reading them, to discover themselves sexually. Like that's a natural thing that happens when you're a young adult. It actually does make a lot of sense that it would be a big theme in stories that are written and read by this kind of audience,
Yeah.
especially when we know historically women, queer people have not been able to be as open sexually and will not be able in mass published literature to always find works that allow them to explore those themes and that content.
Yeah.
You know, I think that maybe again, more so in the last decade has it been okay to publish popular works that have heavy sexual themes. But before that, it was niche genres.
Mhm.
You had to go seek it out in order to get that kind of representation.
Yeah.
And I think that one last thing that kind of wanted to just make sure that like we said in defense of fan fiction is it truly seems to be a tool, thanks in part to the internet, that brings people together. You know, the internet has become this really efficient and effective intermediary between authors and their readers. And that gives a closer relationship within the kind of reader writer dyad, providing audiences with more opportunity to feel sometimes parasocially
Mhm.
connected to authors. Fan fiction is the biggest example of that, in my opinion, after doing the reading for this episode. It's for the fans, by the fans, and that really does take stories through this what if lens and makes them more for everybody, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Democratizes it. It's
Yeah, you take these kind of behemoth tales and you allow people who already love them
Mhm.
to then have some control and some agency over them.
And who knows, maybe that will turn into Red, Right, and Royal Blue, which I believe is a fanfic.
About
I believe it.
the president's son and the king's son.
Yeah, but I think it's a One Direction fanfic,
Hmm.
if I remember correctly. Not sure how that all works.
You know, I would believe that a lot is One Direction fanfic.
Yeah.
You know, but you know what is presidential fanfic is that there's fanfic about JD Vance and the couch.
And that falls under trollfic, because I feel like no one's a fan of that, man.
You know, hang on.
Especially if they're writing about him in the couch. But trollfic smut for sure.
Real person RFP.
I'm sure there's many a fanfic about him in said couch.
That's awful. You know, You can use your fanfiction powers for good. You can use them for evil.
Yeah. Ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
Isn't that just the story of the internet?
Hell yeah, brother.
Hell yeah, brother.
But yeah, I mean, I think that when we first set out to do this topic, I thought it was going to be honestly, I thought it was going to be making fun of it a little.
Yeah.
Like because my own memory of fanfic is one of my teenagedom.
Mhm.
And so maybe I thought there'd be room for trivializing it. But once I even kind of like cracked the fanfic book open, I realized there's no need. There's no
Yeah.
need. The stories are fun and creative and you can laugh at that, but laughing at the genre itself, why? It's something that has helped to democratize literary critique, opening up channels for diverse opinions about a source work to be explored and to be validated, that helps people want to read more but also want to write more.
Mhm.
And that creates these support systems which helps to keep it being this collective cultural production. And it's
Yeah.
always cool when we can share.
Yeah. Are you guys gonna read or write any fanfic now that we know more about it?
I don't know if I want to admit this, but I have read fanfic about, you haven't read these yet, but the Stormlight Archive characters.
Oh, so some Brando Sando.
Yeah,
Was it good?
it was okay. I only read one.
Yeah, I since the Brando Sando books are not sexy at all because Mormon, I might need to supplement with some fanfic. I mean,
Exactly.
thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'll see if I can find it.
I have to go back and read some about like what's her name? Vin.
Mhm.
Okay, roomies, thank you so much for listening.
We hope you'll keep reading the room with us.
So keep checking back for more episodes every Monday and Thursday that dive into the spaces where literature, media, and culture meet.
Please reach out to us at readtheroom@cultureclub@gmail.com for feedback and topic suggestions.
Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at readtheroom_cultureclub for the most up-to-date podcast information.
If you enjoy our podcast, please leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen.
And drop your favorite fanfic website and or story and or author below. And remember to take up space in whatever room you're in. Bye!
Bye!